Okay, let's talk about the climate crisis. What if I told you the biggest problem isn't what you think? It's not about solar panels or international agreements. It's about words. Today, we're diving into how language literally shapes our climate reality.
And yeah, that might sound a little out there, but stick with me. This is not just some academic exercise. We're going to unpack how the battle for our planet is actually being fought, and sometimes, yeah, lost, in the very words we choose.
So there's this philosopher, Michel Foucault, who had a really powerful idea about this. He said that language doesn't just describe reality, it's a tool of power used to create it. And when you think about the climate debate, that is huge. The words being thrown around aren't just words. They're basically weapons in a fight over whose version of reality is going to win.
All right, Section 1, Words that Build Worlds. Let's start with that big idea, how words literally build the world we see around us.
Okay, so the key concept we need to get is something called discourse. Now, don't let the fancy word throw you. It's not just a conversation. Think of it as the entire universe of language around a topic. All the words, the ideas, the unspoken assumptions that basically build a framework for how we see it. It's what constructs a particular version of reality for us.
It's kind of like this. Language gives us the building blocks for our thoughts, right? It's how we make sense of the world, how we frame our arguments to try and convince people, and this is the big one. It's how we create what we all agree is the truth.
Okay, so how does this actually play out? Let's dive into our main case study here, the climate conversation.
You know, this is exactly why the public debate often feels so disconnected from the actual science. We think we're having an argument about CO2 levels, but really, we're in a battle of stories. It's all about narratives and powerful emotions.
And in this fight, believe me, both sides are using a whole toolkit of language tricks to win us over. We're talking about very specific word choices, powerful metaphors, and of course, language that's designed to hit us right where our political identities live.
All right, Section 3, the language of doubt. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. How are these tools actually used to create uncertainty and sway how people think?
So a really important strategy here is something the linguist George Lakoff calls framing. It's basically the subtle art of choosing your words to trigger certain ideas in someone's head. It guides how you interpret something before you've even had a chance to think about the facts. It's super powerful.
And I've got a perfect real-world example for you. Back in a 2002 memo, a political strategist named Frank Luntz gave some very specific advice. He told politicians to stop using the term global warming and switch to climate change. Why? Simple. Climate change is just less frightening.
And you can totally feel the difference, can't you? Global warming, that sounds alarming. It sounds like a crisis, something humans caused. But climate change, it sounds more neutral, almost like a natural cycle, right? Less urgent. And that was the whole point. If it's just a natural thing, well, then there's no need for big, expensive government action. That one little tweak in language had a massive impact on how urgent people felt the problem was.
But it gets even trickier, because the very thing that makes science, well, science, its caution, its precision, is also what makes it so easy to exploit in the public debate.
Just look at this. When a scientist from the IPCC says something is very likely, what do they mean? They mean they're 90 to 100% sure. It's practically a done deal. But what does a regular person hear? Especially someone who's already skeptical? They hear an open question. They hear doubt. And that little gap, that nuance, is exactly what gets exploited to create uncertainty where there's very little.
So what happens when this stuff spills out into the real world? What are the consequences of this all-out war of words?
Well, the consequences are pretty stark. This chart for the U.S. really says it all. What you believe about climate change often has very little to do with how much science you know. It's mostly about your political tribe. I mean, look at that. Political ideology is the biggest driver, followed by the media you consume and your cultural beliefs. That's what's shaping what people think is true.
Okay, so the political divide is one thing, but language can actually create an even deeper split, a divide between us as humans and nature itself.
Check this out. In English, we talk about a river or a tree. We treat them like objects, like things. It automatically creates this distance. There's us, and then there's it. But in a language like Potawatomi, it's totally different. A river isn't an it, it's a living being. A tree is a living being. That's a completely different worldview, right? It's one built on kinship and responsibility, not just seeing nature as a bunch of resources to be used.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. If language is that powerful enough to shape our politics, even our relationship with the planet, then that means we have power too. We have the power to choose our words more carefully.
We can actually choose to reframe the conversation. So think about it. We could recognize that a term like carbon footprint was actually created to put the focus on you, the individual, instead of the bigger systems. We can understand that calling something a natural disaster completely hides the human role in making weather more extreme. And we can choose to use terms like climate emergency to show that this is urgent and requires all of us to act.
Because at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one huge idea. Our words aren't just describing reality, they're creating it. They're not just passive labels, they are active, powerful forces that build the world we live in. So, I'll leave you with this question. If our words helped create the reality we're in right now, what kind of reality will we choose to speak into existence next?